too much. Regular exercise at the gym, 3 days a week. Oh, hello there, and welcome back to Smashing the Sudoku. I'm Thomas Snyder, a three-time world Sudoku champion and one-time world puzzle champion. And if you like this series, please send in your questions to askdrsudoku at gmpuzzles.com. That's ads at gmpuzzles.com. Today's viewer question comes from Harry H., who asks, where do you consider your home to be? What streets did you live on as a child? If I didn't know better, I'd assume Harry was after some of my personal information. So if you are looking for my early childhood home, I lived on the street where I lived, spelled in as shown here, and in my adult life, wherever you can find my towel. But in honest practice, like this is how much I've seen of the US. I've seen more of the world, I think. Certainly there's a whole missing middle of the US where I haven't been able to do as many driving tours. But I lived in Buffalo, New York for all of my childhood till I went to Pasadena in California, Caltech for undergraduate work, came back to the Boston area to get my PhD in chemistry at Harvard, and then I've been back and forth between San Francisco and Seattle for the last 15 plus years of my life in different roles, starting at Stanford, going to a startup there, going to a Renton area near Seattle, Washington, coming back to now the San Bruno area, and then even doing a stretch job back near Seattle in my last position. And I was hiking, about 16 months ago in Oregon and recognizing that there are some unifying things about my home. One is that they tend to look, I guess, on the I-90 or the I-5. You can take from Seattle, stopping with my brother in Chicago, Illinois, continuing over to Buffalo and Boston, and hit a lot of the places I actually visit, just taking the I-90, and similarly the California stretch. Every time I'm moving back between Seattle and San Francisco, I'm taking the I-5, and you can take that all the way down to LA. And so sometimes if you're looking for something special in life, one of the things that I found interesting is recognizing there's a shared hypotenuse of those roads, which will at least get me from LA to my brother, a mother road that's got a number that's featured in songs. This is some meaning of how to stay connected, is knowing that there are even other roads that have this special trait to them. But for sure, my family is as much the people who I can solve puzzles with wherever I solve puzzles with them, the people I can think through harder problems in science with wherever I can think through those problems with them. And so it's not that San Francisco or San Bruno is special as my home. I think everywhere I can be with and connecting with others is really my home. So, maybe these videos are my home, maybe these stories, and we'll be able to tell about a star battle and thermo-sudoku puzzle, and that order is important for this week, will matter. And for sure, I want to make clear that that star battle is a place I've got a lot of memory of the puzzle, at least the setup of the puzzle, so it's not going to be a blind solve. The thermo-sudoku looks like maybe a few dozen I've written myself that are clueless, but I couldn't tell you that there was a specific theme I was hiding that I remember doing. So let's jump to some of those solves. Let's jump first to the star battle, and let's sort of make the video a little larger over here, but we'll get started with this puzzle. And I said it was something familiar to me, and one reason it's familiar to me is there's a visual theme around like the Stanford School of Medicine in some of their buildings, which are 4 rectangles and a central square to fill a 9-cell space. And so this puzzle, I don't mean to color over that shaded cell, is an example where we've got all those rectangles popping up. So here's a blue one, here's a red one. Let's put another up here in yellow. And I'm coloring multiple regions when I do this, but notice that these regions do extend on these bold lines, that these are bounding boxes. There are 3 regions in this 4x8 rectangle. There are 2 regions in this 4x8 rectangle. There are 3 in this over there. And if I come down to this corner, let's go to something that will show a little more visibly. Here's a purple rectangle. So this started, I think this was one of the last weeks I was still in the Stanford, Palo Alto area before driving north in 2013. And so was thinking at least about how can we make a set of squares or rectangles constrain a star battle in interesting mode. For sure, if I rewrote this puzzle now, I would find a way to do it without needing these black cells. This is one of the few, if only, puzzles I think on the site that has these unusable spots in them, but the theme was quite nice enough. I wanted to do it as I could like this. The thing, though, to see is that these rectangles have a certain count of stars that's going to really build up for other things. So let's come to something that's like black and see. In purple are 6 stars. In red in general are 4 stars. In yellow are 6 stars. In blue are 6 stars. And in green are 2 stars. And we're going to move off of these numbers pretty quickly, because what you'll actually see is the grid will divide even into subgroups, where in this red set, there can only be 2 down below and 2 up above. And why are there only 2 down below? Well, let's actually color this grid separately. So purple has 6, and that means across these bottom 4 rows, there are 8. 8 minus 6 leaves 2. which means there are 2 in for this region in red to take. And if you're thinking star battle sense, the 2 that are in yellow down here are going to take away all cells that are left, and so there will be 2 in this region in red. So that's one of the first things you can do in this puzzle. This kind of thinking will work in different elements of the shape. So right now this 2 and 2 leaves behind a count of 4 in this space, and that's going to leave behind a count of 2 in this space. So let's again maybe use a different color here. I'll just color this in red, make that 2. 4 and 2 leaves behind 6 over on this side, so 2 left, and 2 coming from 6 means there then have to be 4 stars in this central place, 2 stars here. That means this 6 actually divides to have 4 over here and 2 here. So now in every group of 4 rows, we get to a sum of 8, and we split apart the puzzle to have these heavy spaces that have 4 cells and the light spaces that don't. And I will maybe now just like remove all the color because I'm not sure that's going to help us too much in the solve. But what we can do is see that if we had 4 stars over here, including this, that the 2 will be in this region, 1 in this sort of this space, here, 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 1 in this space coming across, and then 2 more in the remaining white cells. So these no longer have space for another star. I think I can do something like that up top. At least I know I've got 2 stars here. I've got a star that's 2 stars are going to be in this big 7 shape, and 2 stars are going to be in this shape. That all looks good. And over here is probably the more key one. I need 4 stars in this region. I can put 1 in this region that sits in here, only 1 of these 3 cells. I can put 1 in this region here, and then I need 2 in the remaining positions, and that cancels out these. We're left then with 1 more in the spot that's going to be in this vertical row, and 1 more over here. And some of the things that vertical constraint gives me, like I can't take this position. If I took this position, I force this position, I force another star in this space. So you'll get used to some of these eliminations as you work more. I think one key thing is actually these 2 regions on the right side. I can put 1 in here, 1 in here, and then the remaining stars are going to be in this vertical space. And so they're going to cancel these out. And some of that canceling is going to then probably influence me over here. Notice if I took this position, I move both these stars to the left. And now how do I get 4 in the space? I only get 3 in the space. I get 1, 2, and a third in here. So that position here is no good. So this has to move up. And now it looks like we're going to really go fast because this cancels across. I now can take 1 in these cells and 1 in these cells. I'm going to probably find down here as a key constraint. So how do the stars divide? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 across all these cells. Let me mark this in. The star note is for these. And I've got 1 in this position, so I get 1, 2, 3, 4 coming up here. And if that's the case, then some of the forcing things are going to come from recognizing I also am forced to have like a star across these in blue. And so one thing I can't do is take this position because that forces this star and again puts 3 in a row. This is a similar kind of thinking we've done before. So it must be in yellow, which means it must be also over this space, which already has a star. So I have to take this position, I have to move this over, that cancels these, moves this down, that forces this over here, forces a star to the right here, this cancels down, now clears this up. This center box now finally has some stars we can put in easily. We've got 1 in this row plus a 2nd in this row. That finishes this out. This moves up, cancels here. That moves this star down. We can see that we would have also a star forced vertically here. So that means that all of these other cells are not allowed to go. And so this one in the center moves to the right. We're getting some good progress, but still not enough that's fully forcing. And that may come from now just coming back to some of the spaces. Here we are. Like, look at this 4th row. I've got just 2 cells left empty, so that can take stars. So those do take the stars. That finishes here. It finishes this space. It moves this to the left. I've got a star in this 3rd row, so that cancels these. That now leaves behind us these 2 positions for a star. Moves over this, moves over this. This column is finished. So I've got 1, 2 positions now in the bottom for this. This set of 2 stars eliminates these from the column. I have 1 in green and I have the remaining 1 in blue. I need one more star here for this to work out. And I now have some places I really don't want to take stars. I don't want to eliminate both of those in yellow. It looks like I might be able to take one down here, but the key constraint is probably getting to 3 totals. Let's think about this. I've got 1, 2, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this block has to have 2 stars in it. That forces this, that forces these up. These get canceled. I now have this completely done, but I do need to put one more star in the bottom. That's going to move this up. And now with all these finished, this last star will take us to our final answer. So that is a way to think through this puzzle. It broke apart by recognizing the 4 rectangle plus 1 square theme in general. That's how this center region was boxed in, and breaking the puzzle into 4x4 boxes and using 2 or 4 as the star counts as in numbers was certainly the theme I intended for solvers to find. So jumping to a different puzzle, the thermo-sudoku. Again, thermo-sudoku is a style that I like. I actually created the concept or name for it, not that it was a fully original style when writing Mutant Sudoku with Wei Wang. When I make lots of these themeless puzzles, a common shape I use is either this full like 8-cell thermometer or sometimes split like this. But when it is a full 8-cell thermometer, I will encourage solvers to just mark the either or chain. There's 1 degree of flexibility left in these positions, which means you always have only 2 options for these cells. And the reason to mark this is you'll sometimes run into a pair when you're looking across joint thermometer cells across the grid. And one of the places that pops out right at the start here, again, I don't remember this puzzle, but this is the way most of these puzzles flow. I've got a 2-3 pair marked. That eliminates the 2 here. It eliminates the 3 here. And now that this is at the top end of the degrees of freedom, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 just pops in straight away. This 5 now comes down and is eliminated from these cells. And so we actually now have a minimum 4, 3, 2, 1 path and a maximum 6, 7, 8, 9 path. So that just enters. It's not a hard thing to see if you're doing the work right. We've got a little more constraints over on this side, but let's see if we can figure out anything that's going to limit them. Right now, there's nothing in the numbers that's doing that because these are still separate sets. But across these positions, we have some set of clue values that are starting to get used. Let's see, it looks like 8 is coming down here and filling in this position. 7 is coming to these spots. 6 is coming to these spots. And then I have a 2, 3 set. I've got 1 and 2 coming in here, putting a 7 down below. Got an 8 up and above, 6 in this space. I've got a 5 here. So what does that leave? That leaves, oh, actually this 2 is what I didn't mark. This 2 puts in this 3. So actually this has a maximum constraint 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That 7 now comes over here, gives us 7, gives us 6, gives it 2. So we're working into it, but it's easier than I was making out. This is a 9 under a 5 to make all those work. Still don't know anything that points in this 2. We've got the 1, 2 pair. So this is 3, and then this also is a small number, 3 or 4. 6 and 7 are going to be the limits for that thermometer. That makes this a 2, 3, and a 1, 2. We've got a 1, 9 cell here. What do we got? We got 4, 5 coming across. So that makes a 2, 3 pair here. And the remaining clue is 2, 3, 2, 3. And we have 1, 9, 8 up top. So we've got an 8, we've got a 9. And the 1 is not yet a Snyder note in how this looks. 9's coming across to the center. 9 can't be in the bulb of the thermometer. That's too long. So 9 is over here. We have 8 that's going to be in one of these cells, and it looks like we've got a 5 as the last kind of extra digit as well as these. Can't do more forcing there, but we can come down to the very bottom, see that 9 has to be in this cell, 5 has to be up here, and the last member, 1, 2, 3, is going. So this looks like a place, even though it's fairly limited, it's going to be important to finally look at the last square, and I probably was using constraints in the last square to force this puzzle. So I made 2 4-cell long thermometers. Let's start from the first. This can be 1, 2, 3. It looks like it could be a 5, but 6, 8, 9 is just going to be on the limits here. The 1, 2, 3 coming across means this is a 4, this is a 5, this is a 6. The 7 up above is an issue. If it's a 4, it can't be a 5. So this is as low as a 6 with an 8. And with the 7 pointing from the left here, this is now an 8, 9. Those have some potential, but actually here it is. The 6, 8 and the 6, 8 form a pair. So the first thing I know from this is actually the 9 goes in this cell, moves over this 9. That 9 now forces over here, puts in this 5. I actually should have known from my 5 note that the 5 can't be in those positions. This is still now a 1, 2, 3, 4 cell, but we've got the 6, 8 pair that might be useful. Let's take the other 4 cell thermometer because we got some headway from looking at these. This is again sign like 1, 2, 3, 4. It can't be, can it be as high as 6? It looks like it could be. This next position is 4, can't be 5, can be 6, can be 7. This next spot is 6, 7, 8, and this last spot is 7, 8, 9, but 9's already in that space. Are there any values that get limited by seeing this? Well, one thing is that we still have some other numbers that don't look like they can go in many other spaces in the grid. So let's actually do some more careful tracking of those. Actually, this 6, 8 coming across eliminates this position. We've got a 5 in one of these cells. This 6 is really putting a lot of tension here. So actually this 7 is too big and this 8 is too big. There's now at least something, which are these 3 numbers are forming a full pair. So 1, 2, 3 have to be separate from that pair. That 7 then comes down, so this always has a 7 up top. We can say there's a 6, 7 coming over here because this 6, 7 blocks off these cells and the others are there, and that now looks like a more key observation. This 6, 7, 6, 7 forces this to be a 4. That means this is a 6, this is an 8, this is a 6, this is an 8. That now means this is 7, 6. It means this is 7, 6. That's a whole lot of digits straight away fast. 5, 8 finish out this 8th row. That 8 moves this to be 8, 1. That 5 puts a 5 in here, which now means there's a 5 in these cells. This is now just 1, 2, 3. This is 1, 2, 3. 4 is now on the left over here. The 9 down below is actually making this a 9, 1, which we could have done a little sooner. That 2, 3, 2, 3 pair now leaves just behind this, but we've got an 8 down below, so we can fill in these. This one up top is now actually clearing this. So this is just me. There's better bookkeeping to do this faster, but hopefully you're seeing how this is falling. 1, 3, 1, 3. That 1 now leaves behind this for a 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. We need a 2 with a 4. We need a 2 with a 3. And we are through the second puzzle. So 2 examples of being boxed in this grid, but in both puzzles we found our way through to seeing where you'd have shared cells like this 2, 3 cell, or actually like even later on like 6, 8 cells here, or like here 6, 7s across these positions forcing this 4. It's why I really think even if some other people on the YouTube don't advocate as much for marking the thermometers in, you get a lot of Sudoku pairs out from these thermometer shapes, which is one reason I love this style. Anyway, thanks. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing me smash this Sudoku and solve the star battle, and we'll see you again soon.